Todd Young Online presents Young Tales. Tales for the young and the young at heart. Today's story, Bulfinch's Mythology, Stories of Gods and Heroes. Latana and the Rustics. Now, in the wake of Diana's harsh punishment of Actaeon, opinions were divided. Some murmured that the goddess had been too severe, while others praised her unwavering defense of her dignity. The event brought to mind another tale of divine retribution, and one of the bystanders shared the story. When I was younger, my father sent me on a journey to Lycia to gather oxen for our farm. During my travels, I came upon a peculiar marsh. Near the edge of the water stood an ancient altar, its stones blackened with the soot of countless offerings and nearly swallowed by encroaching reeds. Curious, I asked the locals who the altar belonged to. Was it for Phanos, the god of the wild, or perhaps the Naiads, protectors of the streams? No, a weathered old farmer replied, shaking his head. This altar belongs to Latana, the mother of divine twins, Apollo and Diana. It marks the site of an old tale, one of the goddess's wrath and justice. Let me tell you what happened here. The story begins with Latana, wearied and parched after a long journey. Juno, in her jealousy and spite, had driven the goddess from land to land, denying her rest and safety as she carried her twin infants. At last, Latana reached this valley. She was exhausted. Her arms ached from cradling her divine twins. When her eyes fell upon the clear, still waters of the pond, she thought she had found relief. Kneeling by the water's edge, Latana cupped her hands, intending to drink, but before her lips could touch the water, the local peasants, crude, sunburned rustics, intervened. They were gathering reeds and willows nearby, their baskets heavy with the day's harvest. Seeing her, they jeered and stood in her way. "Why do you refuse me water?" Latana pleaded, her voice hoarse with thirst. "Water is a gift of nature, free to all. The sun, the air, and the streams belong to no one. I do not ask for much, only a single drink to soothe my parched throat. Look at these children, my infants stretched in their arms to you as if in prayer. Do they not soften your hearts?" But the peasants only laughed, their crude laughter echoing over the water. One of them sneered, "Go away, stranger. Find your drink elsewhere. This pond is ours." As if this cruelty were not enough, they waded into the water, their heavy boots stirring up the mud at the bottom. The once pristine pond turned milky and undrinkable. Latana, her patience spent, rose to her feet. Her weariness melted into righteous fury, and she raised her hands to the sky. "If you are so determined to keep this water for yourselves," she declared, "then may it be so forever. Let this pond be your home, and may you never leave its slimy embrace." Her voice rang out like a thunderclap, and her curse took hold at once. The peasants cried out in alarm as their bodies began to change. Their legs shriveled and fused, their backs turned green and rough, and their bellies swelled, pale and bloated. Their heads sank into their bodies, their mouths stretched wide, and their voices, once full of mockery, became hoarse croaks. Their transformation complete, they leapt into the pond, splashing through the filthy water they had stirred. Now they dwell there eternally, their lives reduced to leaping, swimming, and railing in harsh croaks. They sometimes clamber onto the banks, only to dive back into the water at the slightest disturbance. Their green backs glisten in the sunlight, and their wide mouths gape open as they continue their endless, mindless jeering. And so, the old farmer concluded, the pool became known as the Marsh of Latana, and the frogs, its eternal denizens, a reminder to all who hear the tale of the price of mocking the divine. The bystander's story concluded, and the listeners fell silent, each pondering the lesson. Respect for the gods, they understood, was not merely a matter of devotion, it was a matter of survival. And here's where we end for today. Young Tales is produced and narrated by Todd Young from Todd Young Online. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe and join us next time for another story. Thank you for your support.